Welcome to Grief is the New Normal. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, a licensed psychologist and grief specialist, here to help change the conversation about grief and build community and connection while we all adjust to this new normal we are living in. This podcast is for you if you are grieving or if you are supporting someone in a season of grief. I'm glad you're here. Welcome, everyone. I am so honored to have today's guest joining us. In the studio, we have Blair Kaplan Venables. She is a grief and resilience expert and founder of the Global Resilience Project. Blair, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Heather, the honor is mine. What a privilege.
So, introducing a bit about yourself and how you got into the grief and resilience work that you do.
Yeah, I'm a grief and resilience expert, writer, motivational speaker, and the founder of the Global Resilience Project. My background is in marketing and public relations. I have a public relations agency. It's turning 17 in June. So I've always been an entrepreneur. In that space, I helped people be seen as thought leaders, strategization, strategy implementation. And I never thought I would be a grief and resilience expert. That was never like my plan. But I had a bit of a journey where at the end of 2018, I learned my father was terminally ill. And I started to share our story of his drug addiction, my forgiveness of him because we had a very tumultuous life together, and then the story of our resilience. And it was helping people. And so people were inspired. They were like, Blair, your story inspired me to fix a relationship with my parents. Your story inspired me to choose sobriety, to get therapy. And people were sharing their stories with me. So I said to my dad, we have something really special. What if we write a book and we gather stories of resilience from around the world and we put it in a book, and we start it with your story, we end it with mine. And then when you're no longer here, we can still help people. And so March 2019, I started the Global Resilience Project to be just a book. But from when the project started until the first book came out 3.5 years later, my resilience was tested. And so I'm running my business. I'm working on this book. My dad is dying. And then I had to navigate a lot of other traumas. Do you want me to share them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever you
Yeah.
feel comfortable sharing.
So my grandfather, who was like my dad, died. And then on the way home from his funeral, my husband and I got in a car accident on a highway and I got a concussion. And then a few months later, my husband almost died. He had a heart attack and quadruple bypass surgery. He's fine, but that was really scary. And then a few months later, the pandemic happened. And because I started this project, I started being invited to speak a lot about resilience. So I started speaking about resilience. And we learned that we were probably not able to get pregnant naturally. We couldn't really go for further testing because of the pandemic. We couldn't go for further testing. So we decided, let's take a break from trying. So we stopped trying. We got pregnant. We miscarried. And 3 weeks after the miscarriage, my father-in-law suddenly died. And then 3 months later, my mother suddenly died after a 3-week battle with cancer. And then my dad died the same year as my mom in the same week. And so life put me in the path of being a grief and resilience expert, because as I was navigating each of those things, I was researching, like, how do I get through it? How do I not feel so terrible? Like, how can I keep putting one foot in front of the other? And so using neuroscience and, with a mix of like spirituality, I got through it all. I'm almost 6.5 years sober. So I've been, I was sober during that whole entire time. I didn't relapse and still ran my business and grew the project. So my first book, the book that honored the legacy of my dad and I, came out after my dad passed away. But what I realized was over those 3.5 years, the book turned into a global movement, into a community where we have a podcast, a clothing line. I became a motivational speaker and a writer. And it wasn't just one book. We started to create a book series, and we became a social enterprise. And we partnered with organizations to help empower people to strengthen their resilience muscle using neuroscience. And we donate money to various organizations and resources. And so it became so much more than just a book.
Wow. Well, first, just thank you for sharing about your people and the heaviness of that. Like, That's so much to try to navigate just one of those losses, and then to have all of that compounding grief, and yet
Mhm.
you sought out these resources to try to strengthen that resilience. And how do I breathe through this? I think that's just such a testament to your character and your desire to help others. That's amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So then with the Global Resilience Project,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit more about that.
So, the Global Resilience Project is a community and safe space that helps people to strengthen their resilience muscle. And we do this through storytelling. So, podcasts, our books, using social media. And then we, again, have a clothing line, which is like a dark humor, motivational clothing line. And then other strategic partnerships. So, we're working on a couple projects right now, which I can't really share too much about. And from all of that, so that's the Global Resilience Project.
Yeah.
We've published 3 anthologies, and we're working on publishing 2 more, one which you're in. And so as long as people want to share their stories, we are going to create that space to do so, because there's a whole neuroscience behind it, that in order to build emotional resilience, you need empathy. And there's a phenomenon called neurocoupling, that when you're telling a story or you're listening to a story, your brain synchronizes with the storyteller. And that's needed to build empathy, which is required for emotional resilience, which is what you need. You need emotional resilience while navigating life's ups and downs. And so that's just one of the things that we're doing.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then you also have a navigating grief framework, which sounds amazing. Can you share a little bit about that?
And so it's really funny. So I just want to be very clear. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I am a mental health expert. I'm a grief and resilience coach. I can't diagnose you, but I am your griefy BFF. I'm going to hold your hand and bring you forward in your healing. And so I really struggled because I had compound grief, lots of trauma, lots of childhood trauma was surfacing. There was so much happening. And so once I got through it, people started saying, Blair, like, I'm going to need your help. My mother was just diagnosed with terminal cancer. Blair, I'm going to need your help. This is happening. And so I really stood back and reflected on what helped me move forward, because I was seeing a psychologist and like a grief therapist. And then I also like went into, seeing a death doula and doing plant medicine. I did a whole bunch of different things. And so I came up with the navigating grief framework. And it's funny because I didn't tell my sister, who is a therapist. She's a social worker and a therapist. I brought it up on a podcast, and I didn't tell her I was working on it. And I told her about it, and I talked about it, and she's like, that's really good. I'm like, okay, good. It spells out the word grief, and it's meant to be used as a guide. It doesn't have to be done in any specific order, especially because, like, I know grief is the same. Like, healing isn't linear. So the G stands for grounding in the present. So this is where we practice mindfulness. We encourage the practice of mindfulness to stay anchored in the moment, which helps manage overwhelming emotions, anxiety, being where your feet are. Also, under this, we really reinforce establishing routine, maintaining a simple daily routine to provide structure, control, normalcy, amongst the chaos of grief and life. And then in this is a daily gratitude practice, and there's a whole science behind that as well. And then the R is for the resilience muscle, rituals, and routines. So doing those things using neuroscience to strengthen your resilience muscle. And this is also including acknowledging your feelings, recognizing and accepting the range of emotions, and like naming them and processing those emotions. And then finding those healthy outlets for emotional expression, like journaling, art, talking with a trusted friend. And so in this whole realm, we focus on strengthening your resilience muscle. The I's for introspection for understanding. This is where you reflect on that loss. So dedicating time to reflect on the loss, the impacts of life, acknowledging the pain, the memories, perhaps what life is going to look like moving forward, and reevaluating your personal values. And I really love this one because this was really big for when my mom died. It's just a quick like side quest story. Like, I thought all I wanted to do was be a mom. And like, I pictured my life as a mom with my mom as the grandma, and like what I wanted. But when I learned my mom was terminally ill, the idea of being a mom died with her and never came back. So my personal values were completely shaken. So invitation to, reevaluate, what are your personal values and beliefs, and how can they connect to a sense of purpose? And then E is for engagement with support systems. That's like working with me or you, Heather, right? So community, actively seeking and engaging supportive communities, friends, support groups, professional mental health experts, a community like the Global Resilience Project, and helping others. This is actually really big, but considering other ways to help others, this can create a sense of purpose and connection, and can be really therapeutic in managing your grief. And then F is for forward movement. So set realistic goals. So establishing small, manageable goals to foster a sense of progress and accomplishment. This can be something as simple as like, okay, like you're going to brush your hair. You're going to get out of bed. Okay, so today you're going to actually go to the grocery store and you're going to make a grocery list and you're going to buy groceries. And then adaptation, recognizing that you have a new normal and it's time to bring that new normal to life. And it doesn't mean forgetting everything that was, but finding a new path forward to carry the memories of that loss into your new future. And then finding a meaning. So exploring new activities, hobbies, causes, basically things that bring you life, bring you some passion. And this will help with healing. And this is also the Global Resilience Project. I thought I would be a wine drinking soccer mom, but it turns out I'm an almost 40-year-old sober, childless, motherless, fatherless bird watcher who's a grief and resilience expert, right? So it's okay to find new meaning. It's okay to not even have a new chapter, but a whole new book. And it doesn't negate the past. And I think it's a great way to honor the grief. And so this framework is meant to be flexible and every journey is completely different. But these are the things that basically helped me bounce forward. I call, resilience bouncing forward from a challenging experience.
Okay, well, first, I'm blown away. That is incredible. A, I love that you made it a grief acronym.
Yeah.
B, all of those pieces, there's so much fluidity, and what an incredible blend of like the personal and the professional. You did all this research, you have created such an amazing conceptual framework. Like, I can see such powerful daily application of that. And
Mhm.
it's, I'm blown away.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
like, oh my gosh, when can I buy this book? Because
Yeah.
I want to share that with my clients, and I think
I'll send you a link because I have it available on our website because everyone should have access to it. Like, so the framework itself, like not in so much detail, but the framework itself, like it's like a to-do list. I love my list. It's in the back of every one of our books, and it's on the Global Resilience Project website. It's on blairkaplan.ca. Like I make it very available because everyone should have it.
And now let's take a quick break to hear a word from this episode's sponsor. Thank you. Are you a healthcare provider who's worked with grieving patients? We want to hear from you. This study, Grief Training and Education in Healthcare, an exploratory study, is inviting healthcare professionals across disciplines, medicine, psychology, social work, nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, naturopathy, and more to complete a 30-minute anonymous survey exploring attitudes towards grief and perceived preparedness to support grieving patients. Your insight will help shape future grief education in healthcare and inform best practices across professions. Participation is voluntary and anonymous, and you can complete the survey online. Please visit our website to learn more and take part in this important study. Together, we can move toward more grief-informed care. Thank you.
Well, and I think a couple of the pieces really stood out. The reevaluating your personal beliefs. Like, I think that's there when we go through something so transformative as loss, it really does. I call it limited bullshit tolerance with a lot of my clients. Like, we're just in this phase of reevaluating whether you're 16 and you've lost a parent and your friends are worried about prom dresses and you're like, who gives a shit, versus someone who's later in life and loses a parent and it's just like their friends are worried about these superficial things. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm impacted by so much more than that. So it is such a call to reevaluate your personal beliefs and like, how do I want to live my life moving forward? It was so good.
Yeah, and like I just like this isn't something where all you're gonna sit down and like do it. Like you have to change the way you live, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results. And like in grief, a lot of people I work with, and it might be like this for you, they get really stuck because they're not changing the way they're doing things. They're just still existing, but like life isn't the same. And so like it's work. Healing is messy. You have to feel to heal and like it's work.
Yeah.
But all these little things will help you heal.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at someone, I'm going to be healing the rest of my life, but in the matter of just over a year, I lost 3 parents, a baby, and my husband almost died. I'm okay.
Yeah. And you're changed.
And I'm completely changed.
Yeah.
My anxiety is managed. I learned only last year. So at the age of 39, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD and I'm medicated for it. And that was a huge help with my depression. But what I learned now in reflection, in the introspection for understanding, is how grief exasperates ADHD. Because I had bills piling up. I just didn't care. Like I just couldn't function as a member of society.
Yeah.
And decided to spend all my money and open a children's center for at-risk youth in Africa because I was like, I'm going to die. Everyone died. I'm probably going to die soon. I got to go do all these things. But anyways, it was just really interesting because that was all ADHD that was extremely exasperated.
Yeah. I'm sure you've read Mary Frances O'Connor's The Grieving Brain.
No, but it's on my list because I know it's on my list. It's on my list. I'm in the middle of the mountain as you.
Okay.
I have to switch up like grief books with personal development books and rock star autobiographies. Like I just finished Lisa Marie Presley. Now I'm doing The Mountain Is You, and Grieving Brain is next.
And she also just came out with The Grieving Body. But anyways, what I was going to say is that with ADHD and grief, she talks a lot about how our brains are so altered by grief. Like it's an entirely new landscape in your brain and mirror neurons. And when we're not around those people anymore, they don't light up in the same way. And so I think that makes so much sense that all of that executive dysfunction that happens while we're grieving, of course, it makes it hard to do the adulty things that we have to do. And even more so, it's like doubled down when there's ADHD, let alone like undiagnosed ADHD, which
Yeah.
many of us women are playing that catch-up game of like, oh, that's not what typical people do. Like what?
You know what's interesting? Sidebar, like, so all my whole life I wanted to be a child psychologist. And I did like in university, I did my first year of like all the intros and I was like, oh, I need one of these. I should not become one of these. And I really struggled with certain classes like economics, like microeconomics. I had to drop it. Like I just couldn't. I was like, well, I can't progress without these classes. And I realized that if I would have had support, like mental health support and been medicated, I probably could have done it because I used to be able to like, this is a really silly analogy, but I used to like buy IKEA things and look at the instructions and it was like another language. I was like, and I know there's no words, but I was like, my brain couldn't put the things together. Like the way my brain works, like I couldn't put the things together. And a couple months ago, we bought this like outdoor patio set from IKEA and I looked at the instructions and I built it. I had a little help because it was like, it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It was just, there was a lot, but I was able to look at the instructions and do it, which tells me that something that was just like microeconomics was like gibberish.
Yeah.
Grade 12 pre-cal gibberish. Like I think that like if I would to go back and redo things with the medication, things would have been so different. But I can't go back in time. I can only go forward. And that's why I'm so honest about everything that's happening, because my friends might be a parent and they hear this podcast or they, someone, and they might be like, you know what, maybe my kid needs some support. Maybe they actually have ADHD. But yeah, like I feel like I could have been I was going to be a psychologist and I was like, I can't do it. And I went into PR because I could do words. I can't do numbers. And like, it was the number shit that was hard for me. But for, like, it's interesting, like ADHD. Yeah. And then grief on top of that, like that, my brain, I just say my brain broke. So like I had a mental health crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting doing this work these days in this post-pandemic space, whereas my significant loss happened in 2009. There weren't grief coaches. Like that wasn't the thing. There weren't death doulas. It was like, okay, you have to go do a therapist, but even then, like therapists weren't trained how to do grief work. There is such grief illiteracy. We do not have grief informed care as a standard practice. We're starting to do more trauma informed care, but I've had such a pleasure of getting to know so many amazing grief coaches. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish you had been there in 2009, like when I was drowning in my grief and had to figure out how to function and what to do. And, the grief therapy was the avenue for me, but it was a struggle. I mean, I think back because I was also late diagnosed ADHD. We went through the evaluation process for my son and they were doing family history. And then I was mentioning it with my therapist and she's like, I was like, yeah, that's not me. And then she's like, are you sure? Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Oh no. But it's interesting, the awareness now, and that there is this positive shift towards more grief informed care, more resilience training and education. I think the work you do and the platforms you've created are so essential to helping normalize this lived grief experience. And because it's so unique and individuals, I love that the framework you've created. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. And I just like want to say, like, and I know like you know this, but someone is listening to this episode and they're finding you the first time, or they're hearing both of us for the first time. Grief isn't just the loss of a person. And I am a grief and resilience expert, and they go hand in hand. With every trauma, there is a grief. And I'm very big on like really helping people rewire their brain to be resilient, because you need that resilience to get through the grief. And I think it's just so important to know that like we are humans that are born to be resilient. Like it's an instinct. It's a natural instinct, like blinking or what, I don't know. What are other natural instincts? Like catching something that's being thrown at your face, peeing, whatever.
Eating the foods.
But like, yeah, like there are things you can do that is proven by science to help you. And you don't have to wait till you hit a rock bottom. You don't have to wait till you're at that level of depression that you're like, oh God, I'm never going to get through this, because you have two choices. You either keep going or it's over. And like, how long do you want the healing path to be? Or how long do you want to sit in that pain? And there are things you can do now to help you be resilient. So when that trauma, that grief comes, you have more tools. And so I just lost my like soul cat. Frey was almost 2.5 years old when he died. I bought him after my mom and dad died. My mom, so we're Jewish, and in our culture, you name babies after deceased family members. And on my mom's deathbed, she looks at me and goes, "What are you going to name your daughter?" And I was like, "Sharon," like knowing I'm not going to have kids. And so, and her Hebrew name is Freda. We got a cat, and I was like, I'm going to name this cat after my mom. And I named him Frey. And he died very suddenly, and it was so heartbreaking for me. And like I would tell you, this grief and pain was worse than when I lost my dad. And if that tells you anything about me. And so with the framework that I just gave out, and like with Frey dying, I noticed that I was already implementing all of these tools, and I also knew where to go, and I knew what to do. And yes, the pain is always going to be there, the sadness, but the way I was able to carry myself through the deep pain of the immediate grief was nothing compared to when I was lost after my, other griefs I dealt with.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, good. Like this works. And I know there's going to be more grief, right? Like there's going to be more people in my life who I love that die, and pets, and like loss and change. Yeah.
Absolutely. You make such a good point. Grief is more than just that primary loss event. It's the secondary losses, it's the ripples, the non-death losses that happen afterwards. And I think it's so important to start normalizing that aspect of grief too. Like you said, like retirement or a job change or moving or friendships ending. Like those aren't necessarily death related losses, but they are grief. And there needs to be resilience as a result of that to help us move through to what you said, bounce forward, move forward. Is that the language you use?
Bounce forward.
Yeah. So I think that's, I'm obsessed. I can't wait to download your acronym, the framework, and I'll make sure it's a link in the show notes.
Well, and if
listeners,
if you're watching this, it's like I have it in the back of every one of my books.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yay. So I guess for listeners, in thinking about starting to navigate their resilience journey within their grief space, what would you say is one or two takeaways from this conversation?
We have to decide you want to make a change. Like it's going to be work. And figure out those small things you're going to start. Like don't start doing everything at once. That's just not realistic. But start adding small things into your life and removing small things from your life. If you're really struggling, my biggest advice is cut out alcohol, cut out substance. Like it doesn't allow you to feel like when I became sober, it's because my dad was dying and he lived with addiction and I'm a lot like him. And I was like, I can't navigate his end of life like this. And I started healing things I didn't even know because I was living life at such a surface level because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the pain I had from childhood trauma. And so once you're really able to feel, you can heal. It doesn't mean you have to be sober forever. Like, I didn't decide I was going to be sober forever. But on my first day of sobriety, I received an apology letter from my dad. And I just made the decision that like, I never need to touch alcohol or the things that it would inspire me to do or like make me do. But also like using our framework, there are things you can do daily that are very easy. Anyone in the world could do it. Doesn't matter your socioeconomic status, whatnot, but gratitude. If you practice gratitude every single day at the exact same time, and you list 3 things you're grateful for from the past 24 hours in detail, and you do this for at least 21 days, your brain starts to rewire so that you see the world in a more positive way. And I've been doing this since 2016. Like when my husband was in the hospital for 3 weeks, me, him, his parents, his roommate did it. My mom did it the very last day she was awake. Some of her last words were her gratitude. Like, there really is no excuse. If my mom could do it on her deathbed, you could do it. And so I wanted to make sure I was doing it at the same time every day. When I first learned this from Sean Acor from the Happiness Advantage, I was watching a TED Talk he did. I opened up my phone and I chose 9 p.m. and I set an alarm to go off every day and I labeled it the gratitude alarm. It's not that hard. And detailed. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm grateful for my cat, but it's like, oh my God, I'm grateful for my new kitten, Teddy, who has now been in my life for 1 week, and waking up with her next to me just brings me so much joy. Like, detail is important.
I love that. Speaking of TED Talks, you've given a TED Talk.
I did.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's so it was the TEDx Edmonds College. The theme was rethinking resilience. And I spoke about how to strengthen your resilience muscle. And it's amazing. I fell in love with TED about a couple decades ago. I was like, one day I'm going to do a TED Talk. I don't know on what. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, I started talking about resilience, and it just dropped in where I was like, you know what? This could be what I do for a TED Talk. So what I did was proactively went and I did a women's speakers training boot camp, came up with my TED Talk, my talk description, had a coach, like I worked on it. And then I decided I'm going to practice this over and over and over again on any podcast, any stage, any summit, until the right TED and I, are in the same orbit. And yeah, so October 2024, I gave my TED Talk.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very exciting. It was really like, I'm very self-critical. I do have low self-esteem, believe it or not. And like a lot of it's my childhood trauma. But I walked off that stage and I was like, I nailed it.
That's such a good feeling.
Yeah. And my husband was like, because he works from home, so he hears me talk about my story all day, every day. He's like, that's the best you've ever told it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, well, this has just been such a great conversation. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you were hoping we would get to chat about today?
No, I'm just honored to be able to share the Navigating Grief framework. And if anyone wants to learn more about my work as a motivational speaker, a writer, or a coach, you can go to blairkaplan.ca, or you want to learn about the Global Resilience Project, the website is theglobalresilienceproject.com.
Awesome. Blair, thank you so much for your time and this great conversation. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember to be kind to yourselves today, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of Grief is the New Normal. If this conversation resonated with you or you think it might benefit someone else, please share it. Sharing can open doors to healing, understanding, and normalizing these griefy conversations. If you're craving deeper insights or ongoing support, consider signing up for the Grief Gap newsletter. It's packed with resources, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate your grief journey. Visit the website www.griefisthenewnormal.com to subscribe. For those who prefer a more personal touch to their healing process, check out my grief journal, Authentically Unapologetic. It's designed to help you explore your grief on your own terms, with prompts and exercises that encourage reflection and growth. I'm Dr. Heather Taylor, and I look forward to our next meaningful conversation. Our soothing tunes are provided by the Datacorns. If you're interested in sharing your story, collaborating, or learning more, please email me at hello@griefisthenewnormal.com. You can also stream the episodes on YouTube for more engaging content. Until next time, keep exploring your grief with intention and support, remembering you don't have to do this alone.